is saying in Surah 5, in Surah 6, it's presenting the idea that the Trinity is Allah and Mary giving birth to Jesus. I don't think Surah 2, 253 even comes close to actually being a discussion of the Christian doctrine of the Trinity in its context. And I would wonder, I would challenge Abdullah, if he has this information, could he tell us if the early interpreters, Al-Qurtubi, Ibn Kathir, did they interpret it that way? Did they see that as that text meaning that? I'd be interested in knowing. Because I haven't looked at Surah 2, 253 in their commentary, and I will. I'll put it on the list of things that need to be studied. And I'll take a look at it. But I have a feeling that's not what they're going to say. But I know what they say because they did take the time to look at this text. And they understand this as being Allah cannot have a son because he cannot have a wife. Well, that's not what we believe. And the Athanasian Creed doesn't say God has a wife. Before it ever talks about begettal, it makes it something that is outside of time. It's not something where God takes a wife and has a kid. Now, I'm appreciative of the fact that Abdullah at least tries to argue against the Trinity in a little more meaningful fashion. But let's face it, folks. I've listened to everything that Ahmed Deedat said, too. And man, that's bad argumentation against the Trinity. That's exactly, how many times did Ahmed Deedat say that this belief that Jesus is the Son of God attributes sexuality to God? He understood it the same way that Ibn Kathir understood the 6101. How many Muslims misunderstand it that way? But the real question is, isn't that what the Quran says? Isn't that why they misunderstand it? If this is an uncreated text, written in eternity, then wouldn't it be absolutely true in everything it says, including how it represents the faith that it then condemns the followers of to the eternal flames? There's very few things more important than that. And so once again this evening, my exhortation to all of us, Christian and Muslim alike, is we have to think about what we believe and why we believe it. What God are we going to worship? Has God revealed himself as being Unitarian? We all agree, monotheism. But has he revealed himself to be Unitarian? Can you take the words that Jesus says and put them in the mouth of a mere Rasul? Does a mere Rasul, did Moses, Abraham, David, any of these ever say, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father but by me? Not by my teachings, but by me, personally. Did any mere Rasul say, if any of you are weary, come unto me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden, I will give you rest? Did any mere Rasul say, unless you believe that I am, you will die in your sins? My friends, you don't want to die in your sins. That sounds awful final to me. And those Jews who stood in front of Jesus when he said those words, they would have accepted him as a Messiah. He fed 5,000 people. Miraculously, they would have accepted him as a Messiah. They would have accepted him as a prophet. But what they could not accept him as was what he revealed himself to be. The very eternal Son of God that Thomas, when he sees the resurrected Lord, bows in humble adoration and says, my Lord and my God. And that's what I do today. And that's the Jesus I proclaim and present to you this evening. Thank you very much.
It's our privilege now to invite Abdullah to come and present his concluding and closing remarks. Thank you, Abdullah.
Firstly, I'd like to again thank everyone for coming today and seeing this kind of debate. This is my last statement, so I just wanted to thank you for going through questions and answers. I'll just mention a few points. I want to mention about the issue of the Quran first before anything else. Because I mentioned that the Quran understands the Trinity, and I didn't have enough time to fully go through all the verses, and I've got like 15 verses here with tafsir. But I have a copy of the tafsir here of Ibn Kathir, Fakhruddin al-Razi, and Qurtubi. They all say, apart from one of them, that the verse does not necessarily mean that it is Mary who is the. It doesn't actually indicate that Mary is the third person of the Trinity. In fact, it indicates more that she was taken later on after Jesus as an intercessor beside God, and hence the Christians were told to idolize this Mary, even though it doesn't necessarily mean that you literally worship, because another verse of the Quran says when the polytheists say, "Oh, we don't worship these other idols, we just use them as intercessors," and the Quran rebukes them for committing shirk, which is associating partners with God. It doesn't matter what you claim you're doing it for. What you are doing is taking other gods, and again, James White uses the same polemic against Catholics. But maybe in his defense, he might say that Catholics are not Christian, hence the Quran is wrong when it should be to Christians. Perhaps. I have to go with that one. But anyway, the Quran verse, Surah 6, verse 101, which says, wonderful origin of the heavens and earth, how can he have a son when he has no consort? According to Tafsir, it's actually referring to a polemic against certain pagans who say that God has sons. Because also the pagan Arabs also said that God have sons and daughters. The Tafsir says to this, but I could also say that it also applies to the Trinity, because why the use of masculine reproductive titles for an eternal configuration of God? God's internal configuration is based on a relationship of masculine reproductive human titles. Why is that? Makes no sense. That's what the Quran is pointing out here. I'd like to think, according to, and I have some tafsir to back that up. Verse 9, Surah 9, verse 31 does say that the Christians and Jews took their priests and anchorites as lords besides God, not by worshipping them, but by obeying them blindly without question. So do I have 10 minutes? 10 minutes. Okay. Now, I've mentioned a few points about what James White said. He says that we don't take the New Testament blindly. I'm very critical. I look at different, Greek variations, and supposedly, if a newer manuscript, an older manuscript came to light, he would take that over the current manuscripts available, and that's fine. But he's missed my point entirely. You see, I'm not saying that he doesn't look at critically the text and different variations. I'm saying, why is there variations? Variations based on which have theological implications. And in